My name is Lizzie. I am a community manager at Journey Clinical. So Journey Clinical is a platform for therapists to be able to offer psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy into their private practice, starting with ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, which is the current legal in all 50 states form of psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy that is available. And so Journey Clinical has a collaborative care model, which means that we have an in-house medical team who handle all the medical aspects of KAP treatment. So that's the intake, the prescription, and the outcome monitoring. And then we have a network of thousands now of therapists across the US who are in private practice and who offer KAP to their clients. And so the therapist is the one who really supports the client through preparation, dosing, and integration sessions. The medical team comes in for the medical evaluation and follow-up appointments, and those are done via telehealth. The therapy component can take place via telehealth or in person or in retreat context, group therapy, all sorts of things like that, which we can get into a little bit later as well. So you all are in some way or form connected with Journey Clinical, and we hope you will stay connected and continue inquiring and learning about KAP and whether it's a good fit for your practice. We have two presenters today that we will be hearing from. Those are Kelly LaPointe and Brooke Kettering. So you guys can wave. They're here in the Zoom room. So Kelly is a part of our in-house medical team I mentioned before. So Kelly is here to share a little bit about what that medical collaboration looks like from a logistical perspective for your business. And Brooke is a therapist, one of our longest time, most experienced KAP therapists based in San Diego, and has a lot to share and actually has helped train hundreds and hundreds of other KAP providers to empower them to feel confident enough to start offering KAP in their practice, which is a whole part of what Journey Clinical offers, is this training, peer education, peer consultation, and really supporting you in your practice. Community is a big part of what we do. So we're going to kick off with the medical side of things with you, Kelly. So I would love you to elaborate a little bit on what I mentioned, this collaborative care model. What does it actually look like for you as a member of the medical team to plug into, in a way, the therapist's practice and empower them to be able to offer KAP?
Yeah. So I'll just do a brief introduction. As Lizzie said, I'm Kelly LaPointe. I'm one of the lead prescribers at Journey Clinical, and I've worked for Journey for about 4 years now. Brittany Castaneda is the other lead prescriber, and she's just wonderful. We work very closely together, very well together. So regardless of where you practice, either one of us is available to support you. And in any case, I am honored to be here today and meet you and represent Brittany and the medical team. So thanks for having me. As Lizzie alluded to, I'm going to talk about the collaboration and how we empower you as therapists from the medical team perspective. So I would say the major way that we empower you is really accessibility to us, and that works both ways, our access to you. We want to function as a team, working towards the best outcome for patients together. Your success leads to patient success, and of course, that's why we're really here. We, just like Lizzie was talking about, a one-to-one consultation with members of her team. When you are a member, we offer a link for a one-to-one consultation with Brittany or myself. We love talking to you guys. It's truly one of our favorite roles. When I see this pop up on my schedule, it's typically a 45-minute consultation. We get really excited because we love to meet you and talk with you about Journey and your patients and your clients. So this one-to-one can be whatever you'd like it to be. We can discuss specific patients that you're considering for KAP. We call that, like I said, a caseload consultation. To decide if they're good candidates, just to answer any questions, specific questions you might have about contraindications. So whether it's medical or psychiatric in nature, we are happy to go over one, several, however many you have that we can fit in that 45 minutes. But sometimes I know it takes a little while to decide who's the best candidate, who you want to refer. So if you don't yet have a list of clients that you want to discuss, you're welcome to use that same link to meet with us and just ask any questions, whether it's about our medical protocols or procedures, just generalized questions, again, regarding who makes a good candidate, and again, contraindications, maybe some of those contraindications that are absolute, maybe some that are a little bit more in the gray area, and even considerations that are specific to your caseload demographics. I've had therapists do that before too, whether they treat mostly substance use disorders or trauma, any number of things. So we can answer just generalized questions as well. And to my knowledge, and I hope this is true because I offer additional meetings all the time, this isn't a one and done meeting. You can meet with us at the beginning when you're just getting started. You can meet with us a few weeks in. Months later, I've even had people schedule a consultation a year later. Really, just any time that you have questions, multiple check-ins as you build confidence. And that's exactly what we want you to do, how we want you to utilize this link to talk to us. So in other words, we are just here throughout your whole trajectory for you. Another really important way that we support you is really simply by respecting your experience. You know your clients in a way that maybe we don't initially. You've often spent much more time with them and understand their patterns, their behaviors, their history, their nuances. So when you share insights or recommendations, we do take that seriously. Of course, we have medical protocols and safety guidelines that we follow, but within that framework, there's actually a lot of flexibility. We want you to have a sense of autonomy and ownership over the treatment plan and process. We are never about overriding your clinical judgment. It's about complementing your judgment. And as you do start to refer clients, then you will be reaching out to their specific assigned provider with questions that pertain to that client. Another way to empower you and make that collaborative process work is starting with a referral process. There's a place to tell the evaluating provider anything specific to that client that you want us to know. I think it reads just like that. Is there anything else you want us to know? And we really do read those referrals thoroughly. So that's your opportunity to share context, concerns, clinical impressions, anything that might help us understand the client going into the evaluation. Once the client is assigned to a provider, you have access to messaging in the portal. You can reach out directly with questions or updates. Sometimes a care coordinator will respond, and that is intentional. That helps just to make sure that, messages don't fall through the cracks and it just keeps communication flowing. But if you ever want to communicate with the provider directly, just say that. We are totally open to that and we will make that happen. A broader level, you are always going to receive related treatment plans and a personalized note after all of our visits. You get copied on that so that you and the patient both have access to vital signs, dosing, any other nuances pertinent to treatment. So both you and the client are always aligned and informed. You're part of the loop the whole way through. Think that, I don't know, Lizzie, did you mention medication management? Do you want me to talk? Okay. So that's a service that sometimes gets overlooked. We do provide KAP services, but we also provide medication management. So if you're working with a client and you wonder whether they might benefit from a broader psychiatric support, we're happy to help talk through that as well. You can bring those up in the caseload consultations too. We can evaluate, diagnose, and prescribe for a very wide range of conditions. There's really nothing that we say we can't prescribe for. And we do, a question that often comes up is if we prescribe controlled medications, like for instance, stimulants for ADHD, and we do when appropriate. Part of that evaluation also includes making sure that a client is a good fit for telehealth or for our platform overall. Again, another way that we empower you is, if we deem a client ineligible for medication management or for KAP, we will reach out to you and let you know why. And we encourage you to ask questions if you don't understand why. It's a good support, I think, just not for that one client, but because it often helps inform future referrals. And it really becomes a part of the learning process. So collaborative care really is that streamlined and accessible connection between the client, you, and the providers. Again, it enables us to work as a team. I think that is really the bedrock of Journey's model, and Journey is unique in the space for just that reason. So It's that collaborative care that really sets us apart. And the appreciation works both ways. The providers appreciate this process, the collaborative care model, and the therapists, appreciate that too. It's one of the key reasons really that providers continue to work with Journey, because it just feels safer. It feels better to work collectively.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for that overview. You having you here to represent this collaboration. And as you say, the fundamental core of what Journey Clinical is this collaborative care model. And so the calls that Kelly mentioned are the caseload consultations, we call them, but it's a call that you can book with our medical team at any point throughout your experience. So if you are already a Journey Clinical member and you have your portal already, you'll be able to scroll down to the bottom of that page and book one of those meetings if you want to meet with a wonderful member of our medical team like Kelly. And so another piece that's really important as we talk about collaborative care is what's underlying it, which is that you as a therapist are actually remaining in your scope of practice when you partner with KAP. When you partner with Journey Clinical. By Journey Clinical taking on all the medical aspects of the treatment, you're able to really just focus on the therapy. And so that answers what is a common sort of business of KAP question, which is about liability insurance. So I can pull up the list of liability insurance providers that our members have in their practice, but because they're remaining in their scope of practice doing the therapy, typically their regular liability insurance covers the scope of what they're doing here with Journey Clinical. So that's a really important component. There's other aspects of insurance to talk about as well, including like insurance coverage on the client side for the treatment itself, which is growing every day and becoming more accessible every day, which is very exciting. So I want to turn it over then to the other side of the collaborative care model, which is the therapist side. And Brooke, if you want to just introduce yourself first and foremost.
Yeah, I'm Brooke. Like I posted, I live in San Diego, not so far from Nancy. I'm in Ocean Beach. I joined with Journey Clinical, I think it was early 2022, mid 2022. I was doing the Naropa. It's no longer at Naropa, but the psychedelic certification program. There's now a sort of offshoot from that. But yeah, and kind of dovetailing off what Kelly had said, I wanted to, the training I was in was kind of what I actually got ketamine trained for, aside from the bigger umbrella of psychedelics, was through Prati, which is a great organization in Colorado. But they were really pro like being in person with clients. And so that kind of, I don't know, affected my view a little bit, but I discovered Journey Clinical. And after having my own experiences, I kind of decided that it felt totally fine to do this virtually. And it opens it up so much more. So, and what I liked about Journey Clinical, part of what they told us was like, okay, so now you can go find a prescriber in your area. And I kind of was like at a loss of like how to go about doing that. Like, I don't have an office space because most of my clients currently are virtual. So, there was a lot of questions that came up if I were to go that route. And I discovered Journey Clinical, and it kind of was like, wow, they can meet the doctor through this. There's like a lot of collaboration. And I liked how safe that felt. I've worked with other clinics, in-person clinics, and a lot of times they like suggest that they have a therapist or they have an integration person, but there's really no like requirement because that's not what they're offering, right? And unless they're employing therapists, they can't require that someone have a prep session, integration session. Sorry, I'm kind of just like going off now because what Kelly had said got me thinking about that. But what I really appreciate about Journey Clinical is it's like, if you are going to participate in our program, this is how we do it. And hopefully like it's kind of creating like a standard in the industry, which like there's plenty of research now to show that the best outcomes are from the combination of treatment with the therapeutic support. But again, it's like if it's not required, people kind of, will often use it as a way, use a provider, a prescriber as a way of getting the prescription and then kind of decide whether or not they want therapy. So yeah.
Thanks, Brooke. Yeah. So again, another really central piece to Journey Clinical and what sets us apart from other organizations is that we're always delivering ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. Every patient that comes through Journey Clinical must be paired with a therapist in our network and do preparation and integration sessions. So we are not ketamine therapy, ketamine treatment alone, it's ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. And as you mentioned, there's plenty of research about that therapeutic alliance being really central to outcomes. So because of that, we then have this model of, again, I mentioned before, preparation sessions, dosing sessions, and integration sessions. Preparation and integration sessions are typically the same as a regular therapy session and can be billed actually to insurance as such for the 9083 code. And then a dosing session is a little bit longer. So that could be 2 to 3 hours, because in that session, that's where the client, if it's a typical kind of dosing structure, self-administers the ketamine lozenge. So it's a sublingual lozenge, and they have their inward journey during that session, supervised by or in the presence of their therapist. And so between that, you kind of have, again, regular therapy sessions. The integration session has to happen within a short window of time from the dosing session itself. And so sometimes what comes up for therapists here is like, how do I fit this into my schedule? How do I fit this into my client's treatment plan? So I'm curious, Brooke, how you structure it, and do you have a designated dosing day? Like, how does that work for you?
I started with it, like Friday was kind of my dosing day, and I often would do Sunday dosing days as well. It kind of really depends on the client. For a lot of people, they prefer, obviously it's already kind of a costly endeavor. So I always tried to work with people in terms of like making it so that they wouldn't have to take time off work if that was possible, or they would maybe take the afternoon off. But, I really thought of it in the perspective of the client, of like what would serve them best in terms of like not having to wake up for work the next morning, so Friday afternoon. You also have to consider like when to have the integration session. So oftentimes I would do dosing on Friday, integration on Monday, which is nice because it gives them some time to like let the experience settle. Then again, I have had clients where like they were stay-at-home moms, so when their kids were at school in the middle of the week, that was a really great time, because when on the weekend, she was full on with her kids. So it really depends on who you're working with. But yeah, I would say generally I had already left Friday as usually like, if people need to reschedule or doing notes. So that was an easy day to kind of designate as a dosing day.
And do you bill any of that to insurance?
My way has been to bill for prep and integration and do the dosing session as its own kind of out of pocket thing. Yeah, that just felt better for me in terms of, I get that with a 2-hour dosing session, you're spending about a half hour on each end talking, or like, either catching up, processing whatever had gone on prior that week, and then afterwards talking about the experience. For me, it just felt like, I'm just scared of insurance companies. So the dosing session I would bill independently, and I do a sliding scale. So I would really try to work with clients on that.
Great to know. And yeah, what Brooke is referring to is that sometimes for a dosing session, some therapists will bill the first hour to insurance and have had success with that. It's up to, of course, the therapist for that. A question that came just through the chat is, are you present for the dosing session? So maybe you can.
Yeah. Typically, at least in the beginning, yes, whether that's virtually or in person. And I have gone to clients' homes for their dosing sessions. Usually it's some mixture of like in person for the first few, and then either supporting self-guided, which if you don't know about that, it's basically they still have to check in and out with you with their blood pressure and tell you the dose. And, there's like still a protocol, and you're still in contact with a chaperone, but you're not on a video with them or in person with them the whole time. And that's a way to just charge less. It also kind of frees it up where like I'll have people, now more so like if they want to do a dosing on Saturday and I know I'm not going to be like in the woods or something, I'll agree to that if that's what works best for their schedule, because it's very low effort on my end. And obviously the idea is that you're available if there's an emergency, but because ketamine is so safe, that doesn't come up much.
Exactly. Yeah. And especially when you build that relationship and they've done a couple of sessions, you may decide that that's appropriate. So there is always a chaperone present, even if it's remote KAP. So if Brooke was on Zoom with the client, there's still a chaperone unless it's an in-person session. So that's a really important one. And even if it's an in-person session, they actually have to have a chaperone who's going to pick them up from the session because they can't drive a vehicle. So there's always some role for the chaperone, whether that's just picking up or a little bit more of like a being available. The chaperone has to be on the premises and be available. And so they're usually in text conversation with the therapist. And if it's self-guided, they'll do check-ins. If it's remote, so Brooke is on Zoom with the client, then it would just be if Brooke notices something on Zoom and says, hey, can you go and check on the client, then chaperone would be in the premises and available to do that.
And a lot of times it's not. Most of the time that I've had to call upon the chaperone is because something happens with the headphones, the Wi-Fi connection. Like it's not usually that they're having a hard time. It's usually like a technical thing, or like somebody's at the door or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. So you mentioned some pieces about the sliding scale. How do you discuss pricing with your clients? What does that conversation look like? How do you sort of approach that conversation, given that it can be an investment.
Yeah, it can be a lot of information. So I would recommend like, especially if you can have like an email template or just be able to type out an email to follow up because it is a lot. So I'll usually talk about, I'll ask them if they have insurance, first of all, and if I take it and if Journey Clinical takes it. When I started with Journey Clinical, they didn't take any insurance because it was also new. So the fact that people can now use their insurance for the medical part is like a huge chunk of money not spent out of pocket. So first asking about insurance, explaining to them that most likely if they have insurance that the medical portion of their prescription of that, that will most likely be covered or depending on their plan. And that I explained that it doesn't cover the ketamine itself, the medicine, but that ketamine is actually quite cheap. You get 2 doses worth initially. And I also explained that oftentimes two dosing sessions worth can stretch out to 3 because a lot of times people don't take their boosters in the first 1 or 2 dosings. So, I explained that and I explained that the dosing session itself, it's 2 hours, my out-of-pocket fee. And then if I take their insurance, I use that. So it's so specific to like insurance and all these different things. If somebody's like, I don't have insurance, like I'm paying everything out of pocket, then I break it down as, the prep, integration, dosing. And then if you times that by, I explained that you can just do 2 sessions and then decide from there if you want to continue. That's Journey Clinical, give 2 sessions worth, and then you have to see them for another medical like reevaluation, reassessment. And then they give another, is it 8 or 8 sessions worth or 10 sessions worth?
4 to 6 typically. So the total treatment cycle is 6 to 8 sessions. That's like the recommended, based on the clinical evidence, the recommended full treatment.
Okay. And even that can often stretch out with boosters and things like that to be a couple more. So, we multiply that number by however many sessions they're intending to do. Yeah. And I think it's really helpful to have it written down or have them write it down when you talk to them.
Yeah, this has been a challenge on Journey Clinical side as well, of this price transparency when there's so many different factors and components and insurance rates and can just vary so much. And so we actually have a new pricing area of our website that hopefully people can plug in with a little bit more and get a bit more of an accurate range of how much KAP is going to cost. Of course, we can't necessarily guarantee, depending on who you're matched with as a therapist, the price of the therapy, and every therapist also prices differently. So there's just a lot of components there. So if you're talking to someone, it's important to really map out what your costs are going to be and then work with them and support them with resources that we offer about insurance coverage on the medical side and pieces like that. We would love to be available as much as possible for you to educate your clients on things like this. So we actually have a link that your clients can book to talk to somebody at Journey Clinical where they can just be like, I need clarification about my insurance. We can do benefits checks for them. We can answer any questions that they have about the medical side of the treatment or just about the treatment in general. So we really want to be available for you to support you in educating your clients about this option and empowering them to see if it's a good fit. And as Kelly mentioned, if they're not eligible for KAP or med management, they do get refunded by Journey Clinical. That's an important thing to mention as well. So this next question I saw we had a couple of times in the chat as well. So really understanding, how do you get started with this and how do you get referrals? I don't know what that's looked like for you in your practice, Brooke. I'll have you share and then I can share a little bit from what I've heard from people.
How do I get referrals? Can I say one other thing before I forget it?
Please.
With medication management, I recently had a client who has OCD. I presented to her, how like the research about ketamine and its efficacy, but she's a highly anxious person and has no psychedelic experience. So she's like kind of on the fence about that. But I told her Journey Clinical can also do your medication management because she had gone to her psychiatrist. And, a lot of doctors and psychiatrists kind of just go based off of my clients, kind of just do whatever like run of the mill thing. And something that I think, not that I've talked to every Journey Clinical provider, but I think a lot of them are nurse practitioners, which in my experience as a consumer of Western medicine, nurse practitioners tend to like listen more, really like care. It feels like they care. I would say, not to say that doctors don't, but I think the type of doctors and providers that are drawn to Journey Clinical are the type of clinician or medical people any of us would want to see for even things like medication management. So anyway, I don't think she has followed through yet on that, but yeah, In terms of getting clients and referrals, the Journey Clinical Directory, I think it actually goes live today. There had been one that was live for a while, and I got a couple referrals from that. It's been varied. I would say a lot of referrals come from, I'm on Psychology Today, I have a website, I'm on a bunch of different platforms. So, if people are looking for ketamine therapy, I don't know how like search optimization or whatever works, but people find me. And a lot of times, like if somebody asks me just about therapy in general, I'll say, I offer this, this, that, and I include ketamine therapy. And most people, at least that end up coming to me, have tried many different SSRIs, have tried, it's like this isn't their first rodeo with therapy. So a lot of people are pretty open to ketamine therapy. And I think just in the last couple of years, psychedelic therapy in general has become so much more destigmatized that people are open. And yeah, so it's not like I don't have a full practice of ketamine clients. I also wouldn't want that because the time, like the way it works in your schedule, it would get clunky, I think, in terms of like you have, 1 week you have a 2 hour dosing and a prep and an integration. That's like, or say 2.5 hours. That's 4.5 hours with one client in 1 week. But then the next week, maybe you don't see them at all because you've already, so there's a big fluctuation in your schedule and stuff. So it's kind of nice to have 1 or 2 KAP clients at a time. But a lot of clients, I work with a clinic here in San Diego where they really do encourage people to at least have a prep session. A lot of times they already have their own therapist, so we don't necessarily do integration with them. Sometimes we do. So that's been a pretty consistent way as well. And for those folks, I'm not sitting with them for the dosing and things like that. But linking up with, a local clinic can be a really great way to support and just at least get your name out there. And it can also be a really great way for folks that do IM. IM is like $500-$600 intramuscular. It's like $500 or $600 a dose. It's not super sustainable for like long term for most people. Obviously, for some it is, but doing, I think, like maintenance through Journey Clinical is also a nice kind of adjunct for folks, or if they've traveled out of town to come to a clinic or something like that to do IM for 3 weeks or something, but they do want maintenance. Sublingual lozenges it's just a lot cheaper. And usually by then, after they've had a few IM doses, they feel pretty comfortable with the whole process. So it's less like intimidating to do it at home, things like that, without medical like supervision.
That is all so helpful, Brooke. And you also, I know that you've participated with Journey Clinical, you've been a leader, you've done a lot of education for us and within your community. I see you hosting a lot of community events and you're somebody that people know and trust. And I always want to emphasize that when it comes to word of mouth referrals, which are primarily the way that people will refer to you, is a lot about relationship building. And you do a really great job of that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of like most of the things I do and promote have nothing to do with ketamine. But then if people, feel like if they know that that's something I do and they know me from something else, then there's already that like link.
Yeah. And I will say that most Journey Clinical therapists will get started with clients in their existing caseload. So that caseload consultation that Kelly mentioned is a chance to say, okay, this is who's in my caseload. This is who could be a good fit for KAP. And they'll be able to help you. How do I approach that conversation with the client to assess whether that's an option for them? And another place that a lot of therapists will get started is by offering KAP to other therapists who are curious about treatment, either just for themselves so that they're educated on this modality and maybe they have clients who are asking them about it, or some of them may be considering becoming a KAP provider in the future. So also this is separate from that. So they will do that. They might host like a group Heal the Healer kind of KAP session for other therapists. Some do. We also have an internal sort of quote unquote experiential program. Everybody who goes through it must be deemed eligible and must be a Journey Clinical patient. So it's not a true training. You have to be eligible for treatment and go through that medical process, but that can be hosted via group remote peer groups. So you're going to have an experienced KAP therapist like Brooke leading a small group of therapists who are new to Journey Clinical, who have been deemed eligible and who want to have their own KAP experience. And you can also, once you've completed the training, obviously, and got kind of up on your 2 feet, do one-on-one trades with other therapists. Some therapists will say, okay, we won't charge each other if we'll do prep and dosing and integration together. And that can be another way to get experience. We also have recorded sessions live shadowing sessions and co-facilitation opportunities for you to really get that experience early on in hosting KAP sessions. I don't know if you have anything to share about that, Brooke. I know you've hosted a lot of those groups before.
Yeah, I love the healing the healer thing. Oh, I was gonna say, like, those didn't exist when I got started, and it would have been like I would have totally taken advantage of those things, instead of telling my clients like, "Hey, I'm brand new to this, like, are you open to trying?" So it's, yeah, a lot better to get experience with other people also. It's like the same thing as when you're in grad school and you practice, dyadically in your cohort, it's like a lot safer.
Yeah. And then, of course, yeah, if you are eligible, having your own experience is a great thing to then go through that process and be able to explain it better to clients. Brooke, before we go into the Q&A, so people can kind of keep thinking of their questions here, I want to just ask you, well, two pieces. We kind of skipped over this. You mentioned a little bit about finding Journey Clinical, but more broadly, why did you choose to add KAP to your practice and how has it supported your practice?
Yeah, I think you had said it in either here or in one of the emails, but oh yeah, you said it here where it's the only legal psychedelic. I would say that I really wasn't interested in working with ketamine, and when I was doing my certification, I did that preemptively, knowing that like we're on the brink of these things being accessible. And I kind of was like, well, ketamine is like a foot in the door, at least. That's what's available now. I'll get started with that. But once I started working with it, I really understood the value of it just in and of itself, especially because people can continue to take their medications and start ketamine therapy. And the fact that people can have busy lives and children and everything, and they don't have to like completely, leave or check out for 3-4 days or whatever to have a pretty profound experience. So yeah, it was mostly because I was interested in offering other types of psychedelic therapy that I got involved with ketamine therapy.
Right. And what advice do you have to therapists such as this audience who are just starting out?
Well, definitely have your own experiences. I think that obviously if you can't for some medical reason, that doesn't mean you can't be a KAP provider, but I think that having your own like sense of where your client is, even though it'll be completely different in their own, it's helpful to be familiar, I think, with the landscape. And the more practice, the better. I know that initially I was like so anxious I would have the little like Journey Clinical sort of timeline of how a dosing session goes like up on my screen so that I would like know that I was remembering all the things and doing things around the right time. So yeah, if I had had like other therapists to practice on, I could have done that with in those settings and then gotten more fluid with it on my own. But yeah, I think just like anything, like practice, and it'll become a lot more like intuitive from that. And also I'll add that like I'm not great at marketing or doing those things. So I know there are other KAP providers who are like way more Instagram famous or like, influence type. And I'm sure they make way more money than me and have way more ketamine clients. So it's like, I think it's great for people. I remember when I became a therapist, it was pretty like advised against to be active on social media. I don't exactly know when that shifted, but everyone has their like therapy page now. And even there's like Eventbrites for ketamine groups and stuff, which when I first saw that, I was kind of freaked out by it, but it's legal. And so why not? Anyway, so I know that I could be doing those things as well. And when you post, I don't even have TikTok, but people that do TikToks and being active on social media really helps like get the word out. So
yeah, and I think even within your own, even if it's not social media or public, but it's within your own community, your own network, I would say that being a resource for others in terms of education. So I'm oftentimes helping therapists rethink marketing, which they are very averse to, as education, right? Because nobody can access this treatment if they have no idea what it is. And many of your friends, family, you might not want to work with them directly as a client, but it's worth letting them know that you offer this. And then letting them know what that means that you offer this, because you could tell the world that you're a KAP provider, but people don't actually know what that stands for. What does that mean? They think of other treatments that they might have heard of. And so really breaking it down and coming to those fundamentals of, you're doing this work with a therapist. A lot of the work happens in integration. And what does it mean to experience this with you, I think is really important. So being someone who provides that educational information can really help eventually lead to referrals to your practice as well. So we have some more questions. I know that Kelly, you mentioned this as well, but just so that we're clear, we have a network of prescribers as well across the US, like as part of our medical team. So the prescriber who works with clients in your state would be licensed in your state. So some of them are licensed across multiple states. Many of them are just assigned that state because that's the state that they're licensed in. So you would be working with someone local as the prescriber there. Kelly, I don't know if you are able to answer, you mentioned this here. So yeah, we confirmed that if a client has experienced Spravato or other treatments that haven't worked, including ketamine treatments, they may still be eligible for KAP treatment. It would not be, as far as I understand, able to be concurrent, Kelly. So a client who's actively experiencing Spravato treatment wouldn't be able to also experience KAP with us.
That is actually not true. They can concurrently intranasal, and they can concurrently with IV or IM in a clinic setting.
Okay.
We do have some separation, in terms of days they participate. They cannot, however, be participating with another place that provides oral. So we can't do that, at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's at-home ketamine options such as Mind Bloom, you may have heard of. There's a company called Joyous that they do male ketamine without the therapy. What Kelly is saying is that a client who was active with one of those companies would not also be eligible to do sublingual KAP with Journey Clinical.
Typically, we might request a discharge letter from that particular company or, facility. And then we always kind of make them aware, with the IV or IM that, they need to talk to those providers as well, because we don't want it to interrupt that service for them, because they may have different rules than we do.
Yeah.
Regarding that, like prescribing at the same time, Kelly, do Journey Clinical prescribers see like isn't there some kind of like list that everyone's prescriptions go on that's accessible? Do the Journey Clinical prescribers see that before writing a prescription?
Yes. So yeah, we look at a main, like a controlled substance website, same thing that the pharmacists use. And as provided that everything is entered in there correctly, we will see it. Sometimes that doesn't happen, it wasn't entered right, or it's another state, or, but typically, yes, we can see those prescriptions in there. So we know what they are being prescribed or have been prescribed. Yes. In terms of controlled substances.
Thank you both. So just to clarify, we have the medical component and the therapist component. So the medical team at Journey Clinical is in-house. They are hired by Journey Clinical. So if you had a psychiatrist who wanted to be doing KAP in this way with Journey Clinical, they would apply on our careers page to be a prescriber with us. So you can't, unfortunately, necessarily, unless they apply and get accepted and join our medical team, use your own prescriber. It has to be someone who we have a really specific training that they go through, protocols, of course, that they have to be familiar with. But the Journey Clinical membership is, this is for licensed mental health professionals who are doing the therapy component. So that is $150 a month. And that gives you that plug-in medical service to your practice. It gives you access to all the trainings, ongoing training, but especially when you're first joining, going through the core training, didactic and experiential trainings to be able to offer KAP in your practice. That's something that comes as part of your membership as well. So if you have more membership questions, again, I'll just put that link. You can talk to somebody from our team about what that looks like and whether it makes sense for your practice. I just put that in the chat. So I know we have a patient phone number. I believe that's manned 9 to 5 Eastern hours. Kelly, phone support. I don't know if there's sort of like two types of support we're talking about. So like for your membership or for like the patient on like the technical side. So something with their portal, which again, we have this messaging system and there is a patient support phone number. So if they need help rescheduling an appointment or something like that, they would be able to call that number. But it's really important to emphasize that there's a distinct process for medical emergencies. And that is like a 24/7. So if your client is in a dosing session and you need to escalate something, you should get a response from that within minutes of reaching out for like a escalation process. So those are separate things, right? Providers have their own number. So there's a support number for like administrative issues. And then there's an emergency line that is being manned, and that's manned by our true medical directors. And so they're the ones that are going to reach out and support to help with that. We have Bridget on some of these calls, and she has mentioned, I think there's been sort of like a handful of escalation issues within across years and years. Of course, there's times when so we monitor their blood pressure levels before and after the session. So there could be somebody who has an elevated blood pressure, and that's something that you keep an eye on and watch. But overall, this is a very safe treatment, and I'm probably not the best person to even be speaking about that, but we can always connect you with. Go ahead, Kelly. Yeah.
I was just going to say, as far as I know, and I ask about this all the time and am privy to, what comes in. We have never had what we call a sentinel event. So no serious medical issue related to the ketamine since its inception, since Journey started. I mean, have we had blood pressure concerns and things like that that come in and questions? More often than not, I also kind of man and look at that emergency line, and it's usually not anything that's emergent that comes up on there.
Thank you for clarifying that. Can you share more info about the clinical training that providers receive? The training that you receive as part of Journey Clinical is like the core. There's a required training that's in 2 parts. So the first part is the didactic training, or I guess could say 3 parts. So we've got didactic training, which includes the first portion of the training is actually delivered in partnership with IPI, which is the Integrative Psychiatry Institute. So they have their own training program, and we've licensed some of their training content to give you the fundamentals in psychedelic integration and like some of the core pieces there. And then you'll start to get into a little bit more of prep, dosing, and integration, what that looks like. There's topics like navigating difficult experiences, like when there is content in the therapy session that emerges, how to handle things like that, transference, countertransference, sort of somatic pieces there. There's a lot of that training, and that training offers 7 continuing education credits as well. And so that's that core didactic training. And then you have what we call the experiential training, which has a couple different components. So if you are eligible to experience KAP yourself, you would be able to have that experience. And there's, like I mentioned, remote groups that you can do. You can do trades with other therapists. There's also shadowing and co-facilitation as part of this. So again, if you can't experience ketamine for yourself, you're able to watch recordings or shadow a session or co-facilitate. So there's ways for you to get that experiential, quote unquote, experience. And there's also an entire module dedicated to Journey Clinical's protocols. So you could learn from IPI or from other organizations about how KAP works and how it works with the brain and even what prep, dosing, and integration generally look like. But then there's specifics that you'll need to understand about how Journey Clinical prescribes, the fact that, you have these 2 dosing sessions up front. What does the dosing look like? How do you host a dosing session? What does the chaperone do? All of these like nitty gritty protocols pieces. How do you escalate something? All these things. That's all in Journey Clinical's protocols training. So that's another component of that core training. And so all of that is required for you, unless you have some sort of other training from IPI. There's pieces that you may be able to bypass. Never the protocols training, of course. But once you've completed that training, then you are eligible to refer your first client. However, there's a ton more training available to you if you don't feel ready yet. So there's a huge library at this point of resources with past webinars, trainings, EMDR and KAP, IFS and KAP. How do I combine it with this specialty? Like there's also more CE accredited courses there. There's one on like client education and how do you do that ethically, which is really what quote unquote marketing is. It's really just like education, as I mentioned. And so there's a training on that. We also have learning modules on things like how to price yourself, how do you talk to clients about KAP, bi-weekly office hours on how to talk to clients about KAP, on pricing KAP. There's marketing office hours every other week. Then there's over 50 peer consultation groups that are happening at any given point. And so that's really where you get into this juicy content. There's beginners groups, but there's also groups on how do I host a retreat, or, more advanced training in psycho-spiritual emergence, or all these topics that you can really dig into. So I don't know if you have anything else to say, Brooke. I know you trained kind of a while ago at Journey, but if you want to speak to any of the training components.
And somebody asked if it's required still, if they already did a training. I did the Journey Clinical I'm the type of person that I'll do all the trainings, and I like to be over prepared for things. And they each have a little something, other, different gems to to reveal and stuff like that. So yeah, even if it's redundant, it might be worth still just refreshing. And the more you go over something, the more easily it like flows out of your mouth when you're explaining it to clients. So yeah, I did Naropa, Prati, Journey Clinicals, and yeah, I'm always getting more education. I did Enamory. The first time Enamory offered their couples KAP through Journey Clinical, I did that.
I'm always going to plug the community aspect of what we're doing here. So it can be isolating to be in private practice, as many of you know. And when you're venturing into a new specialty within your practice, it really helps to talk to other humans. And so I'm really proud of the fact that there's a lot of community within the Journey Clinical platform, but also people getting together in person locally. We have a state channel for every state that we're active in. And you should be able to find other folks, hopefully in your area, and could be really, really supportive of your practice to meet up with people for coffee, have a meetups. I know Brooke's hosting a meetup in May, and we're getting a bunch of them on the calendar for June for World Psychedelics Day and beyond. And we host sound baths and all these things. So you can see all of that on the events page that you saw for Journey Clinical. We're going to be adding a ton coming up. Well, I'm really appreciative to everyone for joining. And thank you, Brooke and Kelly, for presenting. We hope to see you at an upcoming webinar, local meetup, and we hope to welcome you to the community soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a
Thank
great day.
you.